Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is a place on the internet that I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. Now, this channel has become DC Comics channel, which is like what my podcast, the Bada Boom podcast, has come into become in a lot of ways. But I'm generally passionate about it, and that's what this channel is about. So let's get into it. So what are we talking about today? I want to talk about the fact that Absolute DC could very well be DC Comics' version of Heroes Reborn. Now, for the uninitiated, what is Heroes Reborn? No, I'm not talking about the event from about a year ago where they tried to change what you comes up when you Google search Heroes Reborn. I'm talking about Heroes Reborn from the 90s. Heroes Reborn was an initiative that Marvel put in, bringing in some superstar artists like Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee to salvage their line. They were struggling in sales, so hey, who are two of the highest selling comic book artists of all time? Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee. Jim Lee, of course, New Mutants, creator of Cable, co-creator of Deadpool, all those things. I was 3 when Heroes Reborn came out, so I can't really speak to the quality of it. But it's something that's always referenced when people talk about the comic book boom and bust of the 90s and how Heroes Reborn is a reflection of the time and the excess, the over-design of certain characters, and the edginess of what they were going for. If you're ever going to show someone, hey, what was 90s comic books? Most people will probably point to Heroes Reborn in terms of art style. They'll be like, hey, this is, you look at it, you get it. That's the 90s. And also, it reflects the desperation of Marvel at the time to conjure up interest and try to salvage the company. This is before they were owned by Disney and they were on their own. And with Absolute DC, this new exciting universe that's going to be ultimate in a lot of ways, headed by Scott Snyder, who's going to be doing an Absolute Batman. You have Jason Aaron on Absolute Superman, Kelly Thompson, Absolute Wonder Woman. Right now, also, you have Jeff Lemire on Absolute Flash, and then Al Ewing on Absolute Green Lantern. So, some heavy hitters in terms of artists, writers, just the kind of thing you need to conjure up excitement. Now, San Diego Comic-Con just passed by, and we got some new details about these new books and sort of what the goal is in terms of DC's All-In initiative and this new universe. And as exciting as some things were, like a Rom V and Evan Cagle New Gods book, there were some things that sort of made me a little bit concerned. And I talked about this in my video about the unveiling of the new DC logo, new old logo. When Scott, Jason talked about their books, I would say Kelly Thompson with Wonder Woman. You have Wonder Woman with a Buster Sword. She was raised in hell. Pretty badass idea. And Wonder Woman, in terms of alternate takes, there's not enough of them around, so you don't really get tired of... I don't think anyone will be rolling their eyes at a different take at Wonder Woman, because, frankly, I think there's a lot of fertile ground for people to explore, so I'm really excited about that book. But with Absolute Batman, obviously, the design by Nick Dragotta catches a lot of people's attention. You have the giant bat and very Heroes Reborn. And also sort of the way Scott has talked about it. He joked that this is the Batman who lifts, in contrast to the character he created, which was the Batman who laughs. Batman does not have money. Alfred is a badass. In Jason Aaron's Superman, he's stripping away John and Martha Kent, making Superman on his own. Very modern take. And these are great writers, and I'm sure the books will be good. But if you want the same response that the Ultimate Universe has gotten at Marvel, and I've talked about this, you really have to have an overarching story that connects these books and make people compelled to get them. And it can't just be, hey, this is Reacher meets Batman, or this is sexy Superman. You really need people to buy in to what these stories are. And when they were talking about it, obviously they talked about sort of that focus. And Scott talked about the inspiration around this line has a lot to do with him hearing that a lot of people are saying that superhero comics are dead. They're not compelling and the time has passed them by. So he really wanted to create something that was sort of swinging for the fences in a lot of ways, which is noble and aspirational. But if you're going for, I'm sure they thought the same things when they were creating Heroes Reborn in the 90s. Books or some of the momentum of the books that are going on right now. Obviously, you have Mark Waid and Dan Mora doing a Justice League Unlimited, which is really exciting. The New Gods book I mentioned earlier. But if it's all style and no substance, it can really teeter into what Heroes Reborn sort of represents. And the place where DC Comics is on a comics level, the movie studio a little bit just because of what's going on in the parent company. But in the comics, particular when it comes to sales, DC is really struggling. I read a lot of DC books. That's most of my pull. Obviously, that's what I talk about mostly on this channel. But there's no denying that they're struggling in terms of getting readers, getting people back. They're trying everything from these compact comics. They're doing a lot of things to get people into DC. And it's not working when it comes to the direct market, which is our monthly comics. So this does at times, and it probably is a little desperate because they're like, hey, let's bring in our heavy hitters. It could, and it's kind of fitting too. The San Diego Comic-Con, you just had Marvel sort of say, hey, the multiverse saga is not working. Let's call in Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers to save us. And DC's like, hey, the comics aren't working. Let's bring in Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, Jason Aaron, Kelly Thompson, Al Ewing, and a whole bunch of others. And do I want it to be Heroes Reborn? Do I want it to be a flop or something that's remembered as, you remember that weird time where they gave Batman a huge bat symbol and made him look like Alan Richardson, made him look like Jack Reacher? Not really. I don't want to be an old person in 20 years when my kid is asking me about that era in comics. And I'm like, that was weird. But I don't know. I'm excited, but some of the comments that were made during San Diego Comic-Con has made me sort of like, I don't know if I'm that excited. There were some images, like I said, Wonder Woman looks cool with Green Lantern. That looks like a different take. Flash, I'll read anything from Jeff Lemire. So there's some things to be excited about, but hopefully they sort of stray away from the gimmicks and really focus on the quality. And there's a through line through all these books that make you want to be in the shop, talk about these books, really be engaged with these stories, because that's what comics needs. And that's what I need as a fan. And I think that's what DC Comics fans need. Now, what do you need? Let me know. And peace.